So the triggers of the artist triggered like the artist. So I did just over 5k.
Hello, I'm John and welcome to The Stammerer. So I wanted to start off a kind of, I guess, sort of blog, just to talk about my stammering, the mental health aspect, and just kind of start to record things, and hopefully people will find this handy and maybe hear some stuff that they think that I go through the same thing, or just to understand that what you're going through is all part of life, and it's actually okay to feel that way. So for those of you who I'm not outside of my community, which roughly stands at 36 people, and I thank you so much for that. So I'm 40 years old and I've had a stammer since I was 7, and this all came about because of something that I experienced. We won't go into that now, but it wasn't great. So as a way to defend, I guess, my brain decided to defend itself, and so I went back into me, and I became a nervous and shy kid for a little while, and what doesn't help is that hereditary as well. There is a stammer in the family as well, which probably makes me predisposed to that. So what transpires out of that is, going through 7, 8, was that I had a stammer. So what then happens is that you become aware, and I was a kind of bright kid, so I was more than aware that this wasn't quite right, and we're talking the 80s here, and people would make fun of the person in my family that had stammer. I was always told that if you don't have a stammer, you just had too much to say for you. So I always then linked that stammering was wrong. I never received any help, and I then struggled with it because I couldn't understand why. If I didn't have any help, there was nothing that could be done, and it was just me. And the more that I stammered, the more I became aware of people around me. So I began to feel as though I was an outcast. Fortunately enough, I went to a really, really good school, and I went to a good primary school. Secondary school was fantastic. I felt really safe, comfortable, and at home. And I think when you, as a kid, if you're just exposed to something really, really early, it becomes part of school. It becomes part of your friend group, and what then happens is that you are accepted, and that's how I felt. Is that even though internally I still felt different to everybody else, I felt accepted and safe. I would still avoid things, but I felt okay. Then when I was 14 years old, parents decided to move from my school in Wales to the East End of London, and I started a new school, and instantaneously the kids there just 14, year 10, you have your established friends, and I wasn't part of that. And I was this kid who came in with an accent, who kind of had this stammer, so I was an outcast straight away. And my experience there was horrendous. Bullied, chased, called names, punched, beat, hit, and that was literally in the first 3-4 months. And that was a horrendous experience, which I guess really solidified my feeling that what I was doing was wrong. However, I did vow from that day that I would try to conquer stammer, and I would do what I could to take this thing that I felt was really, really wrong and not let it happen and not let it kind of beat me as it was. So even though I hated it and I despised it, at the same time I wanted to beat it. So fortunately I moved back to my old school, finished my school, but eventually then I finished school at 16 years old. I then moved back to London. So for those 2 years, you know, I really struggled. Looking back with hindsight, probably depressed. You know, I just hated life. I didn't want to be here anymore. You know, and it took me a long time to acclimatise to a new place. Particularly the East End of London is a really, you know, it is a really different place. So either sink or swim. And you know, I tried everything I could. You know, I changed my accent. You know, I did everything I possibly could not to be me anymore. So fast forward, so I got to about 18, and you know, it was a case of do I do something, or do I not be here? You know, I was at a point where I was so depressed, and you know, this is not, you know, on like my parents, and this is not a name of them, you know, but I hid it. You know, I became very adept and very good at hiding how I felt. You know, I became very good at that, and you know, people would think I was offish or I was, you know, a bit weird, but the reason it wasn't for that was because I was just trying to hide so much. And then I decided then I would really try to work hard to try to have some kind of life. So again, there was no help. You know, I didn't know that, you know, we're talking early thousands, that internet was in its early days, and you know, I always, because I always felt it was wrong, you know, I didn't have any context or anywhere to go or any place to know that what was happening to me wasn't right. You know, I didn't know, and again, I had no context and no information. So I just then decided to try to do something. So, you know, I learned to breathe in another way. I just decided to try to change the pattern of speech. You know, I just tried to do something to change, and something started to click, and something started to work. So I then, you know, made some friends. I got a course, and I did like a course, and I then started to meet friends, and you know, I started to come out of shell. And you know, as much as I was a very shy child, I always try. You know, I like to be a class clown, which is quite strange. So, you know, I was always this person that had wanted so much to come out, but was, or I felt, well, I was held back by the stammer. So I didn't feel like, you know, I was so frustrated. I had so much, I wanted to do so much. And I loved, you know, being a clown and doing a bit of acting and singing away and doing all this stuff. And at home, you know, I was, you know, always a bit of a clown, always like to, you know, to joke and that kind of stuff. But, you know, I then always remember that there was a point, and then I would pull the person back. So there's a lot of missed opportunities over the years when I would have loved to have done some stuff, but I didn't because I thought that I couldn't, and nobody told me that I could. So we fast forward, and then, you know, I managed to get jobs, you know, kind of jobs where like the interviews weren't really like an interview as such. And then I got more confident, and then one of the things I learned early doors was fluency of a pattern of speech, which I linked to, you know, when I was calm, when I was confident, which wasn't that often, you know, and particularly at home, you know, I'd be able to talk and to speak. So if I could transfer that into the outside world, and the only way to do that is through experience and to be able to get out there and talk. So I try to get more confident. I try to put myself in situations where, you know, something really simple, and this is going to sound strange, but, you know, I'd avoid walking into a shop and asking for something, or asking where something was, or ordering a coffee, or ordering a burger, or for years I used to eat and drink stuff that I didn't want because those are the words that I could just say, and I avoided so many things. So then, over time, I got more and more, my confidence grew, and I got, jobs, and I worked hard, so one of the things that I always did was to compensate for the fact that, I felt that I was weak in the fact that I can communicate and I would hide. I would then counteract that with, I would try to work hard. Now, I was a bright kid and I could have gone to university if I'd have worked a bit harder, but I wanted to leave school. I felt that I didn't want to put myself through the stress and embarrassment of going to university. Again, I would have been fine, but because of my mindset and lack of information, I stopped myself from having that opportunity. So further on in work, I progressed, I got more confident, more experienced, I worked hard. Then I educated myself, doing accountancy. With hindsight, it's not necessarily something that I would have liked to have done, but it's something that I fell into because of the work that I did and I could do. And then, just transpires into that. So, I worked hard. And then, I've got to a position that I'm in now, which I'm really proud to achieve. However, the damage that was done to get here it's been really, really hard, and I'll speak about that now. So, trauma experienced as a kid, wasn't great, and it's something that no child should have to experience. So that's always been a big part of things, and the stammer is always linked to that. So every time when I got older, I said a word or stammered, or I had an interview and it went wrong, or went to a shop, and every time I stammered, I'd link, I'd hate stammer more. I'd hate me, I'd hate the events that happened. So it was a perpetual hate, and it was a perpetual. Every time that I stammered, I'd fall into what transpires was a depressive state. But I was able to get myself back. It would take weeks. So for example, I'd be at work and something may happen, and I would, I maybe say the wrong thing, and it might have just been a word or two, or it might have been a situation that I was in. So one of the big things for me is saying my name, and I know it sounds really, really strange, but it's just a psychological thing. And if somebody was to ask me like who I was, I'd go, Jack, and the moment that I did that, I'd batter myself, internalise it, and and hate, I really, loathe myself, a lot. And recently is something that I've had to learn to try to not to do as much. But when you spend best part of 30 odd years hating yourself and telling yourself that you're not good enough, and this is not a way to get people to feel like I don't feel sorry for myself. I never have. I've just got on with life and just tried to do things as best that I can. I just didn't like me. So, we had years and years and years of trauma, stammer, like hate was up, and battling through the stammer, going through all these experiences, going through all these negative bad experiences, but also going through some really amazing experiences and doing things I never thought that I would do, because I worked hard, and working hard for me was just working hard to get to the level of everybody else, and I never felt as good as everybody else, and again, that's not to feel badly for me, I just never felt on par with anybody else. I've always tried to better myself. I've always tried to work hard just to get to the level I thought of everybody else. And because I stopped myself having a better education, again, you know, I always felt inferior to people. I still do it, and I probably will. That will always be there with me. So a perpetual thing of, you know, I stammer, you know, I hate myself, linking it back to trauma was always in the back of my mind. And then, you know, I'd go into a depressive state, but I'd be able to come back, okay? So, you know, I'd be that way for a couple of weeks, and then I'd come back, you know, I'd get confidence again, I'd build it up again, you know, and then these, you know, it would happen, say, every 3 months, you know, for a couple of years, and then it'd be every 6 months, and it might be once or twice a year, you know, to a point where, you know, I'm able now to pretty much, you know, talk and speak, and I enjoy it. But still, sometimes when stuff happens and, you know, you just go, your brain just goes, I can't believe I'm 40 years old. This thing is still here, and you always think about that. So July this year, I don't know what happened, whether it was stress at work or whether it's just life, and, you know, I can't think. The brain just decided that was enough, and I fell into a depressive state, and I couldn't get myself out. You know, I absolutely couldn't get myself out of this pit, and I've never felt depression like this, and it's the first time ever, you know, and I would always be the first to, people who said that they had it, I would always be the first to say, you know, like, I've been through this, and I'd say this in my own head, not because I was being like horrible, but probably because I didn't fully understand really the implications of what's happened to me and what happened. And, you know, I'd always be the first to say, you know, I've been through stuff, and, you know, I don't understand why people, you know, that they are, you know, they can't, you know, they say that they're in bed, and, you know, they can't continue with life, and you know, people end their life. And I couldn't understand, not that I would think illy of them, I just didn't understand. So July this year hit, and it came to a point where I didn't want to be here anymore, and, you know, I devised a plan in my head of how I would end things, and it came to a point where that little light when I was younger, after being beat up and spat on, and, you know, I decided from then that I would fight, and this little spark in my head was like, it just sparked, and I was like, no, I can't, you know, I need help. You know, when you get to that point and you think to yourself, I don't want to be here, you know, it can start off as a small thought, and then it can escalate, and mine escalated over the years. You know, I've always had this thing where at some points when you feel so low and so bad, you just want to fall into the abyss, and I can't explain it to you. So when you feel so low and so bad, and you don't want to be here anymore, and you don't want to speak, and you don't want to talk, and you don't want to interact, and all you want to do is you just want to fall away from the world and just not be here anymore. And I was in that place, and, you know, a combination of that fight and a combination of my family, you know, I called the helpline, and, you know, I was able to speak to some really, really good people, some amazing people, like people at Mind, for example, and, you know, I started to talk about, for the first time, I started to open up about trauma of the past, and, you know, the damage that I feel has been done over the years, and stammer, and openly now started to speak about it. So then we fast forward to September, October this year, where, you know, I went to see the GP, who's very, very good. They started me on something called serotonin to lift up the mood, to see if I could get out of the depression. And you know, it's started to work. You know, I started to go back to the gym. I started to feel good. But you know, I was probably a bit I went to the other way. And the manicness of it, you know, I was going to the gym at like 1 o'clock in the morning, you know, because I just couldn't sit still, and I couldn't, you know, I couldn't focus, you know, and I went back to work and that kind of stuff. And then gradually over the last couple of weeks, you know, I've then started to come back down again, and you know, I've been taking the serotonin, and you know, I went from being really, really high to low again. I dipped probably September, October, and then I went up again, and I've come just crashing, just absolutely crashing down again, where you know, I was being extremely tired, you know, not being able to get out of bed, you know, feelings of being really, really low again, you know, hating myself again, and you know, it's, you know, again, I've kind of had to admit where, you know, there's something generally not right, and you know, is the damage of the past and the continual part of the damage, what's happened. So I then went back, and this time I called the mental health nurse up, and we've been having some conversations, and my serotonin's been increased, and transpires that there is called bipolar. And if you don't know what that is, it used to be called manic depression, and effectively, you know, there's all different kinds of the order, and it sort of means that, you know, I basically am up, and then when I'm up, I'm really, really high in a manic phase, or I'm really, really low and I'm in a depressive state, and all I want to do is sleep, and I can't do a lot of stuff. You know, I've got kids, and I've got an amazing other half, and she is just amazing. And you know, the last 2-3 weeks I've just been in that place where I've just been so low, I can't function, and it's been really, really hard. And it's been really, really hard to sort of, a couple of reasons. One is to kind of admit that, you know, this is something now that is kind of like happening to me, and it's going to be with me forever, and it's a new phase that I need to come to terms with. You know, it's you know, and it's not just impactful to me, it's impactful to my wife, it's impactful to my kids, you know, it's impactful to my job, you know, it's impactful, basically any touch points with me. So, you know, this is, hopefully this will be a blog to kind of highlight some stuff, and maybe it's a tool for me to look back and maybe see, you know, where I've been high, where I've been low. Where I am right now is that I'm still low, but compared to what I was in the previous week, and doing this really, really helps me. You know, being able to talk it out, and I'm pretty much talking to me at this point. My community is quite small. I'd love to grow the community, but right now, you know, this is about me, you know, talking to you, but really talking to me, and this is really, really helpful. So I'll post as much as I can. If you find this helpful, please like, favourite and subscribe. You know, it helps me to put this out there, and feel free to comment, and feel free to reach out to me, and I will happily respond. So thank you for listening, and take care.